Hello, everyone. This is my second podcast for our second reflection. So the topic I chose today was, does violence in media cause violence in real life? Now, there are many forms of media: social media, media through TV, media through video games, many forms of media, right? Now, I've done a bit of research on this topic, and when I've come to the conclusion that if a child from a young age grows up watching violent things on media, reading violent things, playing violent video games, in that process where they begin to start, developing their brain, their mental their ways of thinking, things like that, if they watch all these violent things or play these violent games, things like that, there is a higher outcome, a higher possibility that they will grow up to be more violent, therefore causing more violence in real life, right? So what I've found out from my research is it desensitizes children to violence. It can make them fearful of the world around them. And it can, in turn, make them more violent, more willing to lash out, to do things, violently, right? So in this sense, media, violence in media can cause violence in real life. Just to throw in a little quick example, kind of what I've already said. If I had a 5-year-old child, they're still in the stages of development, their brain is still developing, they haven't fully developed yet, they haven't fully don't fully have a personality yet, their own ways of thinking. If I constantly let that child watch violent movies, if I let that child play violent video games, excessive violent video games, just to be more specific, things like Call of Duty or, shooting games or things like that, things that have a lot of blood and gore in them. As they grow up, they'll become desensitized to these things. They won't even bat an eyelash to these things. And they could even become more aggressive as they grow up. They could become more violent. So in the future, they can become violent human beings and cause violence in real life. Now, when talking about the topic of social media, and on a more broad aspect of ages, not just children in the developmental age, it can cause violence. Violence in social media can cause violence in real life. There have been instances on Twitter where somebody gets canceled, to use a modern term, and people begin to find this person's address, this person's place of work. Some people even go as far to show up to this person's house, or things that can put this person in actual danger. That can cause violence in real life just because on social media they said something other people didn't like or other people were offended by. Now, that doesn't mean that people who say something offensive on social media or say something bad on social media aren't allowed to be educated or, for people to contact places of work. For example, the video that we watched recently where a woman said a very hurtful thing, and people contacted her places of work, she was fired, things like that. Those things, in my opinion, are acceptable, but other people find them as violence, and that's completely okay. Also, it does get to a point where it becomes excessive. For example, how people were saying, or how in the video it was said that she was getting rape threats, death threats, things like that. That's never okay, no matter the circumstance. And in turn, that social media environment caused a very violent or scary situation in real life for this person. So, in conclusion, violence in social media can 100% cause violence in real life, no matter the age and different types of media. Like I said earlier, TV, video games, social media, things like that. Violence can be caused in real life from social media. That is my stance. Thank you for listening. This has been my podcast.